answer video where you post questions and I try to answer the questions, and hopefully some questions get answered for some people. Let's do this! First question this week is from Tycho Verhelle, and Tycho asks, my question is how to start getting a lock in my beard and how to care for it. Greets, Tycho. I personally have no experience with locking up beard hair. I cannot really advise on locking up a beard. I've included the question because I get asked about it a lot of the time. Many people try and encourage me to lock up my own beard, so I thought I would try and go over what I do and don't know to get it out there. Beard hair is not the same as regular on top of your head hair. If you leave the hair on top of your head for long enough, it will start to knot up and form dreadlocks. Beard hair is not quite the same. It's frizzier and wirier and is not really all that inclined to form knots by itself in the same way. And also it's quite difficult to get anything like the same length in the same time as on the top of your head. I didn't used to do anything to my facial hair at all. The beard that I had maybe a year and a half ago, before I shaved it off for a video, or I shaved it off at some point. That was the beard that I'd been pretty much growing since high school. I'd never actually shaved my face, ever, until then. Not my full face, anyway. That was the first time I'd shaved everything. And I didn't brush that beard, I didn't condition that beard really at all. I just sort of trimmed it when it started to get square, and it didn't knot up. I don't want it to knot up, so that's fine. People try and encourage me to lock up my beard, and that does not appeal to me at all. The thought of having dreadlocks where no. But I think that if you are going to try and lock up your beard, you're going to need some significant length, and you're probably going to have to try and force it in some way. I've seen it where it's obviously being done naturally, where it's just matted by itself and it's not uniform and it's just like natural, but the length has been incredibly impressive in those circumstances. When it's shorter, I've seen it where it's been sort of bound, twisted up and tied with string, or braided and then left in the braids until the braids have started to loosen and it started to knot up instead. I think, therefore, if you are going to plan on locking up your beard, you're going to have like years of beard length before it's going to be at all useful. But that's all I can say because I've never tried it and I don't personally know anyone that has. Max Vitale, question, I started my dreads yesterday. I used the twist and rip and backcomb methods. The dreads don't seem locked up at all. The ones in the back are really poofy and I'm afraid they will fall out. Should I wait and see how it goes, or I should take them out and try again? You have to wait and see, wait and see how it goes. Rather than brush them out, because if you wait and see how they turn out, they might lock up or they might come out completely, but if you brush them out and start them over, then they will definitely come out because you brushed them out and you don't know how they'll turn out. But you know, you leave them in and they either stay or they don't. It's not really encouraged, or there's not really a point in just brushing them out because they're loose to start them over again, because if you start them over in a few days time or weeks or whatever time period you're at, they will likely end up back in that spot again and you'll have wasted time in between. Sheridan, question, my dreads are 10 months and a couple of my locks, there is what I call gaps where it's a dreadlock, then in the middle of the dread it's just straight unlocked hair, and then dreaded hair further down. Do I have to remove the dread and start all over on the few locks, or is there a way I can fix it? This question or this situation is not as uncommon as some people seem to think. A lot of people will consider it normal to have younger dreadlocks or dreadlocks that haven't matured yet, where it's loose at the root or loose at the tip, but it's not uncommon to find them where they're loose in the middle. Dreadlocks don't start locking from a specific place, they just sort of knot up where the hair decides it's going to knot up. So sometimes it's in the middle and knots up above and below, sometimes it's at the root and locks down, sometimes it's at the tip and locks up, sometimes it'll lock up in two places and lock sort of towards each other and leave a loose patch in the middle. It is not at all uncommon or rare or scary, but it's not always what people want. Well, most people don't want that. It is not something that you'd want to brush the dreadlock out to restart it, because at least in this case, the guy, girl, Sierra is probably a girl's name. In this case, Sierra's dreadlocks are 10 months old, and it would not be recommended to try and brush that out just because it's loose in the middle, because you would have lost 10 months of dreadlock, and there's no guarantee that 10 months later, after you restart them, that they would not be loose in the middle again. Whereas you'd be much more certain that if you left it, and instead of taking them out and waiting 10 months to lock back up again, if you left it, 10 months later, those dreadlocks would be at 20 months, and it would be fairly certain that it would be locked up in the middle. There's nothing I would recommend to attempt to lock them up in the middle. If you try and maintain that sort of loose patch, there is a sort of risk that you will damage that hair, because the dreadlock above and below will be a lot stronger and feel like rope, and you'll move things around and the hair in the middle will not be as strong because it's loose hair. It's a risk there that I would not personally attempt to go in and try and do anything to that hair, because there's nothing wrong with it, it's just not locked up yet. So I would just wait it out. This question has come up a few times and there is a queue on the questions, so when people post a question it takes a while for me to answer it in the video, and in most cases, in fact, well, at least in every case with the Q&A, whenever I've heard back from the person, when they say thank you for answering my question, but they will then say the problem has already solved itself by the time I've managed to answer it in the Q&A. So it's not sort of a big worry, really. Daniel Benson has a really long question, so I'm just going to sort of summarize it, otherwise this will be like a 20-minute video. Daniel Benson has layered hair. When you start dreadlocks, it's recommended to have a certain length of hair. The longer the hair, the more length you have to form knots in, and therefore if you start with hair too short, you won't be able to create enough knots and they will not be strong enough to hold up like when you wash them and stuff. There's then some sort of like confusion sometimes with people who have layered hair, because when you have layered hair, some hair is going to be one length, some hair is going to be another length. If some of your hair is long enough to lock up but not all of it, what's the rule there? I personally recommend having hair that is 6 inches or longer before attempting to form dreadlocks from it. It's a little bit longer than some people will recommend, but it's, well, what I would be most comfortable recommending, because if you start it shorter, then there is a lot higher risk of them washing out. So I only recommend 6 inches or longer. If you attempt to work with layered hair, where some of the hair is longer than 6 inches and some of the hair is shorter than 6 inches, the stuff that's longer will likely lock up because it's long enough, and the stuff that is shorter is going to be much more likely to come loose. What you can end up with there is dreadlocks coming out, formed from the hair that's long enough, and then sort of a second loose hairstyle of the loose hair on top, which is just like a lot of loose hair. With layered hair, I would recommend waiting until the shortest layer is long enough to lock. So if all your layers are long enough to lock, so your shortest bit of hair is 6 inches, that is what I'd wait for, rather than getting just like the longest bit long enough and then locking up, because it's better to wait. Dreadlocks are a long process and they can be annoying and stressful and loose and messy at the best of times, so it's advisable to wait until at least your hair is in the best state, length, condition before you begin. Jason Singh asks, is separating important at the early stages? Separating is always important if you don't want your dreadlocks to Congo together. Dreadlocks are made from hairs that have knotted together. 2 dreadlocks next to each other, you got hair on both. The hairs don't have conscious thought, they don't know not to knot with each other, and so especially with young dreadlocks that are loose and soft and more inclined to knot into each other, if you're not on top of your separating, you can find that the dreadlocks lock into each other. That's fine if you want Congo dreadlocks, not so great if you want to keep them separate and in the sections that you created. Different people are going to find different experiences with separating. Some people will find that they have to separate every day, multiple times a day. Normally every time they get out of bed after you've slept on them. Other people will find that they don't have to separate at all. There's no guarantee which side or in between, no guarantee what your experience with separating is going to be before you start the dreadlocks and get in there. But I would not recommend just sort of thinking my dreadlocks are young, I don't need to worry about it, because if you let it get out of hand, then they become too knotted together to be able to pull back apart, and then you have to either go in and try and cut them apart or sort of accept that they're fused together now. Every situation is going to be different. You're going to have to stay on top of it, check around your head and see how the dreadlocks are going, but it's not something that you'd want to forget about for a long period of time. Especially with young dreadlocks, because you are likely to come back and find that they're a lot more knotted up than you expected. Those are my questions for this week. If you'd like to ask me a question to be answered in a video, you can leave it down in the comment section below. Please write question at the start of your comment, it will join the queue. If you want the question to be answered sort of promptly and not wait for it to come through the queue, don't write question and you'll get a text response. If you like this video, if you found it helpful, useful, enjoyable, informative, fun, you can click the like button. If you'd like to see more videos from myself in the future, you can click the subscribe button. I'd like to thank you guys for watching. I hope to see you again next time. Farewell!